The big question for me in that timeline is, why did we wait until after 12,000 years ago to start seeing the beginnings, what are selected as the beginnings of civilization?
History says that 12,000 years ago, humans were just trying to survive. We didn't build massive towers or do complex math, but the stones at Göbekli Tepe say that history is a lie.
The site of Gobekli Tepe really did send shockwaves through the whole world of early prehistory, because we'd never before known or imagined even that simple hunter-gatherers could produce such spectacular monumental structures.
New evidence proves the builders had a grasp of geometry and physics that rivals modern engineers. They cut stone with a precision that defies logic. But then they stopped. They buried their masterpiece under a mountain of dirt and vanished. What were they hiding? And why does the new data look like they had technology that we are only just inventing today? The evidence we were never meant to find. Göbekli Tepe was not the start of something new, but the final act of something old. It was a marker. It was something that brought together the best of everything that they had gathered and created it in one place. But beneath the dirt, the story gets much darker. The laser scanners just finished mapping the deepest layers of the world's first temple, and the results are sending shockwaves through the scientific world. Scientists have spent decades trying to explain how ancient people moved 50-ton rocks up a steep hill without horses or wheels. We had never before known or imagined even that simple hunter-gatherers could produce such spectacular giant stones. Now, a 2025 study has revealed tool marks that look more like they were made by high heat than by stone hammer. This site was built 11,600 years ago. Yet the perfect balance found in the stone rings is perfect to the millimeter. This discovery shows that everything we were told about our ancestors is a flat-out lie. There is a massive site in the desert of Turkey that simply should not be there. It is called Gobekli Tepe. Most people think history started with the Egyptians, but this place is twice as old as the oldest pyramid. It was built around 9,600 years before the Common Era. That means it is over 11,000 years old. To put that in perspective, the famous Stonehenge in England was built only 5,000 years ago. Gobekli Tepe was already ancient and buried when the first stone was moved at Stonehenge. This site is so old that it was built by people who did not have metal, did not have the wheel, and did not even have a way to write things down. Yet they created a mega structure that covers an area as large as 20 football fields. The scale of this thing is hard to wrap your head around. The site is made of at least 20 circular rooms. Each room has huge pillars shaped like the letter T. These pillars are not just rough rocks. They are beautiful giant stones standing up to 18 feet tall. Some of them weigh as much as 50 tons. 50 tons is about the same weight as 3 large school buses stacked on top of each other. And here is the kicker. These stones were not found on top of the hill. They were carved out of the solid ground rock at the bottom of the hill and then moved up to the top. Modern engineers say that moving a 50-ton stone up a steep grade today would require heavy-duty cranes and a team of experts. These ancient people supposedly did it with nothing but their bare hands and some rope. But if you look closer at the art, things get even stranger. It is not just the moving of the stones that is strange, it is the art. Every pillar is covered in detailed carvings of dangerous animals. You can see lions with their ribs showing, angry foxes, scorpions, and vultures. These are not simple drawings. They are carved in what is called high relief. This means the animals stick out from the stone. To do this, the carvers had to remove all the stone around the animal, leaving the figure standing out. This takes a massive amount of time and skill. If you make one mistake, the whole thing is ruined. And they did this on one of the hardest types of limestone in the world, using only other stones as tools. The story we have been told about these people does not match the evidence. The official story we are told is that these were hunter-gatherers. These were people who spent all day just trying to find enough berries and meat to survive. They did not live in houses. They did not have cities. But that story is falling apart. Hunter-gatherers do not have the time or the food to support a team of hundreds of stone carvers for years. They do not have the organization to move 50-ton rocks. To build a site like this, you need a massive amount of extra food, a way to organize thousands of workers, and a reason to stay in one place for a very long time. This site proves that someone in the ancient world had all of those things long before we thought it was possible. But the most terrifying part of the site is not how it was built, but how it ended. Around 8,000 years before the Common Era, the people who used this temple did something crazy. They did not just leave. They did not let the wind and rain destroy it. Instead, they took thousands of tons of dirt and rocks and buried the entire complex. They made a giant man-made hill to hide their work from the world. It stayed hidden for 10,000 years until a farmer hit a stone with his plow. Why would a civilization spend centuries building the most beautiful temple on earth only to bury it in the dirt? The answers might be hiding in the microscopic details. The impossible math hidden in stone. But the true nightmare was hidden just beneath the surface. In the year 2025, a team of researchers decided to use the most advanced technology on the planet to look at these stones. They used three-dimensional laser scanners that can see details smaller than a human hair. They also used computers to look for patterns in how the stones were cut. What the computer found has left the team completely speechless. Most people think ancient people just hammered away at rocks until they looked right. But the computer found that the pillars were placed with a level of mathematical accuracy that is scary. They were doing geometry thousands of years before math was supposedly invented. The computer looked at the centers of the three oldest circles. It found that if you connect the center points of the pillars, they form a perfect triangle with equal sides. The sides of the triangle are even to within a fraction of an inch. To do this, you need to understand complex geometry. You need to know how to measure long distances over uneven ground with perfect accuracy. Remember, these people supposedly did not have rulers or even a way to write down numbers. Yet, they were doing math that we usually associate with the Greeks thousands of years later. The deeper we look, the less sense it makes. The computer also looked at the tool marks on the stones. For decades, we were told that the pillars were shaped by pecking. This is a slow process where you hit a rock with another rock over and over again. But the 3D scans showed something different along the edges. The computer saw straight cuts that are perfectly straight for over 3 feet. The width of these cuts is only about 0.1 inches. This is extremely thin. When the computer compared these marks to known stone tools, it could not find a match. Stone tools usually leave rough, jagged edges. These cuts were smooth and clean. The data shows that whoever built the pillars had a way to cut through solid limestone as if it were soft wood. There is one huge problem with the tools they supposedly used. There is no evidence of metal tools at the site. No bronze, no iron, nothing. In fact, if they had metal, we should find rust or chemical traces in the stone. But the stones are clean. This leads to an uncomfortable question. If they did not have metal and stone tools could not make these cuts, what were they using? The analysis of the surface feel showed that the stone was not just cut, it was almost melted in some places. This brings us to the machine signature problem. It looks like industrial work, not ancient handiwork. When we use modern machines to cut stone, they leave very specific patterns because of the way the blade spins or moves. The computer found patterns on the pillars that look more like they came from a machine than from a human hand. The spacing between the marks is too consistent. The depth is too perfect. It looks like the work of a robot, not a tired human working in the sun 12,000 years ago. This discovery is scary because it shows that there was a level of technology on this planet that we know absolutely nothing about. Soon, the scanners would reveal a tool mark that defied all known science. The lost technology of fire and ice. One of the biggest surprises found by the new research is evidence of something called thermal shock. Scientists found scorch marks and heat damage deep inside the limestone quarries. By using chemical analysis, they found that parts of the ground rock were heated to between 750 and 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is incredibly hot. To get limestone that hot, you need a massive controlled fire. But they did not just burn the stone, they also found signs that cold water was thrown onto the hot rock immediately. This is a very advanced way to break stone. This technique requires a knowledge of physics that should not exist back then. When you heat rock and then cool it fast, it shatters in a straight line. But to do this and create a 50-ton pillar without accidentally breaking the whole thing is almost impossible. You have to know exactly where the natural faults are in the stone. You have to control the heat so it does not go too deep. The fact that they were using this method 11,000 years ago is a massive curiosity. It shows they were not just hitting rocks. They were using physics and chemistry to do the hard work for them. The evidence of high heat is literally carved into the statues. And get this, the heat marks were not just in the quarries. They were found on the finished pillars themselves. Some of the detailed carvings of animals show signs of being smoothed out using high heat. It is almost as if they had a tool that could melt the surface of the limestone to make it look like glass. Modern stoneworkers use high-pressure water or diamond saws to get this look. The idea that someone was doing this at the end of the Ice Age is putting it lightly when we call it a mystery. It changes our entire understanding of the human story. Usually, technology starts bad and gets better, but not here. The crazy part is that this fire and ice technique appears out of nowhere. Usually, when a new technology is invented, you find a lot of mistakes first. You find rocks that exploded because they got too hot. You find pillars that cracked in half. But at Gobekli Tepe, the very first pillars they made are the most perfect. There is no learning curve. It is like they showed up on the first day already knowing every secret of the stone. This shows that the people who built this were not starting civilization. They were continuing a tradition that was already thousands of years old. If they were this advanced, why did they stop? So if this knowledge was so great, where did it go? Why did the people who knew how to melt stone and move 50-ton blocks suddenly stop? The site was active for about 1,500 years. Then it was buried and forgotten. The people who lived after them in the same area went back to living in simple huts. They forgot the math. They forgot the physics. They forgot the heat. It is as if a giant reset button was hit on the human race and we were forced to start over from zero. But the reason they buried it might be scarier than the site itself. Everyone is obsessed with how Göbekli Tepe was built, but the real mystery is why it was buried. This was not an accident. It was not covered by a sandstorm over time. Scientists have found that the dirt used to cover the temple was brought from miles away. It was a mix of limestone rubble, animal bones, and flint tools. They used over 10 million cubic feet of fill to create the hill. That is enough dirt to fill up the Empire State Building 10 times over. This was a massive engineering project just to hide the temple. They put as much effort into hiding it as they did into building it. If this advanced technology existed 12,000 years ago, what else have we forgotten? Are there other sites buried beneath our feet right now waiting to be found? Let us know your theory in the comments. If you enjoyed this mystery, hit the like button and subscribe for more.